There's a difference between being tired and
Mhm.
fatigued.
Mm.
Like fatigue is no matter how many naps you take, no matter how much water you intake, you're still hella tired. And no matter what you do to get the spoons back, it's getting harder each day.
Hey, it's your host, Dr. Janice Castro on Latine ADHD. I'm super excited because today we're going to talk about ADHD and hormones. Now, if you don't identify as a woman, it does not mean that this episode ain't for you because you probably have a woman in your life. And so you could always educate yourself by listening to this episode so that you know how to support the women in your life. And if you are a woman and you've noticed that maybe your ADHD is a bit more of a struggle during your menstrual cycle, or you're noticing that you're more tired than usual and you don't understand why. But what does it really mean to feel tired versus fatigued? We'll be talking more about that on today's episode and about the signs that might be connected to ADHD and hormones, as well as why it's important to know and what to look out for and how to get yourself the support that you need. So, today, who will be on our podcast episode is Stephanie Olano. She is a prominent Latinx therapist, speaker, and podcaster based in the vibrant Bay Area in California. As the CEO and founder of Todos Therapy, her dedication lies in providing culturally sensitive mental health support to BIPOC and Latinx individuals who are grappling with imposter syndrome, authenticity privilege, as well as acculturation struggles encountered by first generation and third culture kids. Does that sound like you? You may want to reach out to her. Additionally, Stephanie's passion for financial well being led her to establish Awkward Money LLC, where she serves as a compassionate coach and healer, helping clients navigate and heal from financial trauma. While you get the privilege to hear from two therapists on this podcast today, this is a reminder that the podcast episode and this podcast is not a substitute for therapy. Thank you so much, Stephanie, for being here. I was looking through your bio and I did have some questions around it. I love the work that you're doing and I
Hmm.
wanted to get a little bit of clarity. So, you mentioned that you work with first generation and third culture kids. How would I know if I'm a third culture kid?
Yeah, so basically, all first generation kids or folks are third culture kids,
Mm.
but not every third culture kid is a first gen. So for me in particular, although I was born here, I'm the first in my family to be born here, I do not share the same experiences as my sisters who came here when they were about 3 and 7. Um, they had a very different experience than I did growing up.
Mm.
And most of the clients that I work with who are first gen, it's like, yes, I share the the history, but I don't share your particular experience.
Yeah,
I didn't
yeah.
have to take a citizenship test. I didn't have to learn, or at least I don't remember learning English while speaking Spanish. I don't have those particular experiences. So that makes me a first gen technically, but history wise, like not, I'm just not comfortable with that.
Yeah, that makes
Um,
total sense.
yeah, but I do remember having to navigate certain rooms like, oh, you don't know certain things about my culture. And now I have to explain, oh, you guys don't do that. That's weird, type of
Mm.
thing. But I'm not having a word for it. And basically having the acculturation issues, although we as Latinx folks, like we understand family is number one. Not every culture shares that. I
Yeah.
found that weird. I found that really weird. But yeah, for certain folks, like that's just not a priority. But understanding that and going into certain circles or certain households that didn't share that, and also creating my own,
Mm.
that's really what Third Culture Kid is about. It's having to navigate family's priorities, your own priorities, but also adapting to living in America.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you so much for sharing about your own experiences. I'm curious, what is your ethnic background like in terms of your roots? Where did your family come from?
Yeah, so my mom's from Nicaragua and my father's from El Salvador. But as soon as we entered America, like that side of us is more like, yeah, we're from there, but we're in America now.
Mm.
So let's get used to it.
Yeah, for sure. There's a lot of layers to our cultural backgrounds, right? How we navigate living in the US and the difficulties and the strengths that we see within our culture. Us too, coming from the Latinx community, there's also a stigma when it comes to mental health. It can be really
Oh yeah.
challenging to be okay with receiving services and talking about it casually, like with family. It's not something that gets encouraged, or sometimes there isn't the privilege to be able to access it. So, as we're talking about mental health, I know that you specialize in ADHD, and I would love to hear more about how ADHD impacts women in terms of hormones and health. A lot of women with ADHD struggle with health conditions, for example, thyroid issues or having PMDD, so the
Mhm.
premenstrual. Oh, what does the other D stand for? I know the second one is disorder. Menstrual.
Premenstrual dysphoric disorder. Yeah,
Got it.
dysphoric.
Yeah. It makes sense why I couldn't remember that word because I don't use it often, dysphoric. So yeah, I'm curious if you could talk more about what are signs that might be connected between hormones and ADHD when we think about these disorders.
Yeah, unfortunately, because the stigma is there, a lot of Latinas, people with uteruses, they have learned to underreport if they do have access to medical care. They find that they're in certain conversations about like, yeah, but everyone has that. So even
Mm-hmm.
though I'm talking to certain clients about like, yeah, yes, during PMS, like you do have cramps, but it shouldn't get to a point where you're unable to get out of bed. That's not normal. Or you're noticing major mood swings like a week or two before your periods, like that's not average. So because of stigma, a lot of folks hear this message of like, but I have that and I'm able to go to work. I have that, I'm able to go to school, so get it together.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, this is where like our resiliency, our need and just our overall, I guess, just trauma responses say you have to keep going. So a
Yeah.
lot of women, unfortunately, are faced with the issue of my mom says it's okay. My mom said Thea is able to do this, so I don't see why I need to talk to a doctor or even my therapist about it,
Mm.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. A lot of the times I'm playing like little detective, like, okay, that may require you to go to the doctor to get a blood panel test. I think you need to follow up and really advocate for yourself.
Mm.
Instead of talking to the doctor, can we talk to a nurse practitioner? Can we find someone in your community that also has a medical background? Maybe they left the field and went to the holistic route. There has to be someone we have to start opening up to because the underreporting or just powering through, that's the big issue that I find in the community. And
Yeah.
the lack of education, a lot of us don't know about our bodies, and this could be a hormone issue, or we don't know our family history that there is a thyroid issue. We don't have those conversations.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I agree with you. When I reflect on even my own experiences as a Latina growing up, talking about periods and menstrual
Mm,
cycles, like that was not something I was prepared for. When I first learned about it was in school, but I don't think that they taught us about thyroid issues or PMDD. And
mhm.
the conversations were definitely not happening at home. And so then I think if you're not having those conversations because there's also some shame or stigma around talking about periods and menstrual cycles, then like you said, at the experience of women within our cultures, you just keep pushing forward. We do have this resilience, but also how you mentioned it can then look like women not disclosing their symptoms. And I think it's so great that when you are meeting with clients that you are being more investigative of what does it look like because yeah, just nobody talks about it. And a lot of us will be at jobs nobody is taken off because of their period because they
Mhm.
have mood swings or cramps. You are
Yeah.
taught to keep pushing forward.
Yeah, I'm always having conversations on, you do know maybe we need more protein.
Mm,
Maybe we need like an iron supplement. Like that type of connection just isn't there. And I think that's the sad part because as much as again, like we are all about family, I think in our within our own family systems, like there's so much secrecy and so
mm-hmm.
many things that we don't talk about
Yeah.
that people are left just figuring it out on their own. But again, like a lot of the folks I work with, they're on the young adult spectrum. Like
Mm-hmm.
they don't know what questions to ask or let alone know how to talk to their doctor about these topics. So they're
Yeah.
going to be shy about it or just not know.
For sure. And it's hard too to ask your doctors about it because
Hmm.
I know from my own experience, when I would go to the doctor, it was yes or
Yeah.
no questions and then keep it moving.
I say I got treated like I had a number at like the deli. And
Mm,
like a
yes.
deli in the East Coast, like New York, unless you know what your order is, get the hell out of the way.
Yeah.
And it's really sad that our healthcare is to that point. Like at a deli, it makes sense, but when I'm talking to a doctor, there are things that I don't know to ask. So my doctor should be the one doing the investigation. My
Mm.
doctor should be the one to help me at least find the right words or the right terms of what I'm feeling.
Yeah, definitely. When you talk about this really important point that doctors, we would hope, could be more open to the types of questions that we want to be asked if we're experiencing PMDD or is this a thyroid issue. I was wondering if you could share with us more about how those signs show up or might be connected to folks who have ADHD.
Yeah, so the first thing I try to investigate is okay, there's a difference between being tired and
Mm-hmm.
fatigued.
Mm.
Like fatigue is no matter how many naps you take, no matter how much water you intake, you're still hella tired. Your body doesn't feel like it has that energy. And no matter what you do to get the spoons back, it's getting harder each day,
Can you
you
talk
know?
to us more about what those spoons are?
Yeah, so in the neurodivergent community and the chronic illness community, there's this metaphor that says when I start my day, how many spoons do I have? And that's how much energy, like my energy level I have. I also compare it to how much battery is on my cell phone
Mm.
right now. So on a good day, for certain folks, they could start off with 12 spoons, 30 spoons, 100 spoons. They just have spoons to spare. But every task that they do might take a spoon or two.
Mm.
So the example I give is when you get up in the morning, how many spoons does it take to brush your teeth, comb your hair, get ready for the day? How many spoons does that really take? Now we're going into work, driving there, getting to the actual job, actually turning on your computer. How many spoons does that really take?
Mm-hmm.
Not to mention the daily tasks you have to deal with and the conversations. When we start breaking it down, it's no wonder you're tired. But when you're fatigued, no matter how many spoons you get back, whether it's self-care, going to therapy, or doing fun things, you're just feeling that fatigue.
Yeah, definitely. That fatigue versus I'm just tired, or how is that different from fatigue? And I love the example of spoons because when it comes to spoons, as you mentioned, every day you're going to have a different number of spoons. And
Hmm.
I love how you broke down that these moments of either tasks or transitions are also spoons because we get so caught up in the routine.
Yeah.
And so you dismiss how many spoons you're using up throughout your day. And you mentioned driving to work. And sometimes we might overlook how that also impacts us because we're just like, I do that commute every day. Like, I have to do it. There is no choice. Yet, being able to have compassion around those commutes can really take a toll.
Hmm. Yeah, I live in the Bay Area. The 101 on certain hours, you don't want to be on there,
Mm,
especially when it rains during the winter. It is hard work to drive certain parts of that freeway. I can only imagine what's going on in LA right now. That driving anywhere just takes a lot, but because we live in America and this is a very car reliant country,
mm.
we just don't think that it might take energy or some of our cognitive focus. It's just something that we do. So even little
Yeah.
things like that, having conversations on like, yes, this might be fine for other folks. Maybe other folks enjoy driving. Like that's what gives them energy. They like being in traffic sometimes because it gives them the chance to listen to their music or catch up on audiobooks, but that's not you. And
Hmm.
that's okay.
I agree with you. When we think about the experience of driving, some people might find it as a break from either home life or work life. It's their me time. And when you're living in metropolitan areas or big cities where there's a lot of traffic, it can be challenging to deal with the, like you said, cognitive part, thinking about the traffic. Are you running late, feeling impatient, road rage? It can be a lot. So I hear that one of the signs of how hormones and ADHD are connected is some of that fatigue or that how is that different from feeling tired? Any other signs that you've noticed with ADHDers and struggling with hormones?
Yeah, so the major thing is I advise all of my clients to go to the doctors, get that blood test. I want to see
Mm,
if we're lacking certain vitamins,
true.
if we're dealing with things like anemia is a
Mm,
big one in our community. If we need to start having certain conversations, are we getting enough things like protein and iron?
mm,
And why aren't we like our diets are typically heavy protein, contrary to popular belief. We know how to eat, we know proper nutrition, but for some reason, for some of us, like our bodies are not able to metabolize it or break it down to give us those nutrients. So that needs to be investigated with the doctor as well. And the blood test is a great first step on uncovering that.
definitely. Such a great strategy to get that blood work done to make sure there isn't anything else that might be contributing to fatigue or ensure that our bodies are taking in the vitamins and protein that we're needing and that it's getting metabolized because those are not conversations that I've learned when thinking about health. I know high school or middle school, we may take classes that talk about health here and there, but outside of that, where are we going to learn this
Mm,
information? Like, how
yeah.
you don't know what you don't know.
Exactly,
Mm,
exactly. So from there, once I have the blood test results, I'm able to have conversations on, okay, so if we've ruled out you're getting enough protein, you're getting enough iron, like all the stuff, if there is thyroid issues, we can start having conversations around that. What does that mean for you? If for some reason that's not the case, then we would have to start monitoring things like the cortisol. As we know, cortisol wreaks havoc on the body. It is a stress hormone, and
yeah.
that's what typically impacts our focus and our alertness. And like going back to driving the car, if it's registering getting stuck in a traffic jam is like you're being chased by a lion, like
Mm-hmm.
what's happening? Then we start having conversations on, okay, what do we need to do to make that car ride a little bit more manageable or just your body de-escalate from being chased by that lion feeling.
Yeah, for sure. Our bodies don't know any better. We may think, I know I'm stuck in traffic, but the physical response feels so much more intense. And trying to make that connection as to why that's happening is so important because once we're aware of, okay, clearly I'm struggling with driving, I'm feeling more stressed than most people, then what do I do about it? Right. You brought up also thyroid issues. What does it mean to have thyroid issues?
Yeah, so I'm learning this from for myself too. So I've always known certain members of my family have thyroid issues.
Mm,
But talking about that with my doctor, they were like, you don't really show signs of it. You're fine. You just have to lose 10 pounds. That was the results I got. So I did my own investigation and found out that there are two types. There's the
mm-hmm,
hypothyroidism. That means your body's not able to create this, it's this little tiny thing in your throat, and
mm,
it can't manufacture this particular hormone. So that's where diet or exercise or certain things that you need to start tweaking in your everyday routine to help your thyroid stimulate that
yeah,
hormone. Then there's the hyperthyroidism, which is where it's making too much of it.
yeah,
So same gland, it's making too much.
yeah. It's too
And
hyper.
that's yeah, it's too hyper. For that, we're having to figure out, okay, how do we stimulate that? How do we figure out what's triggering that? So those are the types of conversations that I have with folks. But what it does to the body, no matter what, is maybe for certain folks, like it messes with weight fluctuation. For
Mm-hmm,
the hypothyroidism, it's really difficult for folks to lose weight, no
yeah,
matter how much exercise or diet is involved. For the hyperthyroidism, for folks, it's difficult to gain that weight. So if they want to gain like muscle mass or they really want to have the Michelle Obama arms, like it's really difficult for them
yeah,
to reach those goals. But at the same time, it wreaks havoc on cognitive function.
mm,
So there are times focus is not going to happen
yeah.
because if your thyroid is overstimulated or underacting, yeah, of course, focus is not going to be a thing.
Yeah, definitely. It's so important to understand the differences of the hypothyroidism and the hyperthyroidism and how that can impact both physically and mentally. Hopefully, more compassion that you don't have to keep pushing yourself so hard to be at the same level of energy as other people or even when you compare to your own self during certain weeks of the month, which I think that part of this is having that holistic support, right? I know you and I are therapists, and you do assessments with ADHD,
Hmm.
which is super helpful. And then also how important it is to collaborate with either a psychiatrist or your primary care physician so that you can get that full support and understanding of both mental and physical. Because with ADHD, there are these symptoms of difficulties with focus, distractibility, and if hormones are playing a role, then that means navigating that week before your period or that week during your menstrual cycle to do things differently.
Hmm. Yeah, I say to my folks, your body needs support.
Mm-hmm.
So, but we need support to support that. So that's why we need to reach out and talk to our doctor, get that psychiatrist on our side. Maybe we need certain family members, like trusted people, to have conversations about this. Because, yeah, uh, do I wish all of my clients had a functioning thyroid or some part of their body is just not able to function to its full potential? Of course, but it's not a bad thing that occasionally, and for some of us, like we need extra support. Everybody is different.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's the hard part is being accepting that every body is different, every brain is different, and being okay with that because society just puts us in these boxes of like everybody should be able to function a 9 to 5 Monday through Friday. And you only need a certain number of PTO or a certain number of vacations, as if everybody has the same energy levels or the same health.
Yeah, and just because one day, yeah, something like brushing your teeth takes 1 spoon, if you're struggling with thyroid or depression or any other chronic illness, that same task could take 10 spoons.
Yeah.
So each day varies and every season varies. Around wintertime, if it's harder for certain folks to really get the day started, you're probably struggling because it's winter. We're not supposed to be as productive
Yeah.
during that time, but society tells us like that is our busiest time. Holiday season is where a lot of companies make their money.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But looking at human history, wintertime was a season to slow down or catch up or spend time with family. That is not the case in a capitalist society that we live in now.
It's true, for sure. There's so much more going on throughout the years because we live in a capitalist society. It keeps expecting more, faster, and it makes it overwhelming, makes it harder to keep up. And that's why it's so important to be able to get the support, like you said, for the support that you need
Hmm.
because it takes a village.
Yeah. And it should have been this whole time.
Right.
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah.
We are just so conditioned to think independently in this country of you got to do things on your own and feel proud of that independence, but then it's a little too extreme. And then it makes it even harder.
I think that's more of a folklore at this point. Because when you break down like those who call themselves self-made or we assume they're self-made,
Mm.
those folks had help. Like
Right?
you go to their history and you're like, oh no, you didn't do this on your own. It
Yeah.
kind of looks that way, but no, you had someone rallying or cheerleading you on, or maybe they gave you like the first amount of money to fund your business. There
Yeah,
was someone there. Like no one is born in a
definitely.
vacuum, you know?
Exactly. We're definitely not born in a vacuum. And the idea of pulling yourself up by your bootstraps. I don't know where
Yeah.
that term came from, and it's so inaccurate.
No, so what I learned is that I think it started in the military and it's not the full
Mm.
quote.
Oh, it's not.
It's
Okay.
not. So when you read the whole statement, it actually does involve, no, you need to depend on your brothers type of
Mm.
thing. That's the whole message. Yes, you pick yourself by your bootstraps, but I forget the whole quote, but the bit that's part of the message, unfortunately,
Yeah.
that we've
Yeah.
been sold.
And I wonder why, as a society, we've
Mhm.
narrowed it down to only that part of the quote.
We have certain folks who, when they find something that kind of fits their narrative, it
Mm.
they butcher the language, they
Yeah.
bastardize it in some way.
Yeah.
And I think some people have gotten too comfortable with it. It's also the same quote with a jack of all trades. It's better to be a jack of all trades than a master of none.
Mm-hmm.
But when you read the whole quote, it actually advocates like, no, I'd rather be a master of something than nothing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. I think these messages that we hear, it's important for us to do some research and see like
Yeah,
where
read the
did
whole
this come
quote.
from?
Read
Was
the
this
whole
the full
quote.
quote?
It probably wasn't. American
Yeah.
English, like they like to summarize. They like to,
Get to
and
the point.
yeah, they want to be efficient. It's that productivity again, but
That's
we're
right.
missing the full context.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you so much for sharing some insight on how ADHD can impact hormones and your health in people with having either PMDD. Now I can remember dysphoric after we talked
Got
about
it.
it, and thyroid issues, and remembering that we all have different number of spoons throughout our days and being able to get support for the support that you need.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I appreciate this time. And yeah, people, get your blood panel test. You are
That's right.
worthy of getting this medical treatment. It's there.
Yes. Yes, definitely. Getting that blood work is super important. So, I will put your contact information in the show notes. And I wanted to ask if there's any offerings that you have available for folks.
Yes, I am right now taking ADHD assessments. I offer something called anti-oppressive, anti-racist prices. I
Hmm.
try to make my services affordable to fit as many people's financial situation as possible. I'm also trying to get into short-term therapy, but for financial anxiety and trauma. So if there are ADHD folks who want to heal their relationship with money, hit me up. I want to have those conversations with you.
Such great work. I really appreciate hearing that you are providing the assessments that are anti racist, anti oppressive, and the short term therapy related to money because we know that the ADHD tax is real.
For you. So
Yeah.
let's talk about it.
I feel so grateful that I had the opportunity to have a conversation with Stephanie on ADHD and hormones and what premenstrual dysphoric disorder is, the difference between hyperthyroidism versus hypothyroidism, as well as what are the signs that might be connected to it when you have ADHD. And I think it was so great how Stephanie highlights the importance of remembering to check in with how many spoons you got today and knowing that the number of spoons you got today may look different tomorrow and the next day and the next, as well as the importance of having holistic approach to one's mental and physical health because we know how interconnected they are. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen. If you want to contact Stephanie, please feel free to reach out to her and you can find her contact info in the show notes. Take care.